that I'm mostly interested in to show you about the connection with meeting the needs of all kids. Schoology is set up by a folder system like this, and I'm just going to drop that down so you can see how the teachers have created sort of a structure around teaching this first unit around Introduction to Science, again, 9th grade. Notice this one here that says Chapter 1 notes. You must complete this first. What's happening in some of the learning management systems is teachers are sort of using them to just deliver instruction online, but it's instruction that is not differentiated or kind of responsive to the needs of everybody. What I might mean by that is, I'm going to totally call this teacher out. You can't tell him that I'm doing this, okay? So he might be teaching a separate piece, and this is his assignment. So read the chapter and complete the write-up for the handout. So the way that because he's new to this, he's using this learning management system as just a delivery of, this is the assignment you have to do. But there's nothing else in here that's going to become sort of technology-rich in a way, when we think about the way the brain works and recall. We know that if we add images or if we add audio, we can bump up that recall by something crazy like 65% if you have an image and that audio. And so the fact that there's an assignment here that doesn't include that, to me, makes me wonder about how best to use a learning management system to meet the needs of all kids. Again, if we've got an audio and some visual components to this. Right, I'm going back to that one that I wanted to show you because we just have a little bit of time. And what these teachers have decided to do is they're setting this course up so that students come in and they have choice a la carte menu. They have a choice, and so they're differentiating through this 3-week unit. You know what? It's not going to let me open it because I haven't completed this chapter notes first. This learning management system allows us to give assignments out to students. They all have to do it, and then there are gateway assignments, and then the next thing gets to open up. And so it changes the dynamic around pace and time for getting something done. So the first week of this course, kids come in for this 45-minute class, they sit down, they come into this learning management system, and they get to pick and choose based on points, certain assignments based on their learning styles. Some of the assignments have videos, some of them are TED Talks, some of them are PhET interactives that are simulations around something they want to do. Sometimes they're asked to go in the back of the room and do a little mini lab, but they can do it at their own pace, and what the teacher ends up doing is walking around the classroom and answering direct questions that are just in time need. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to show you one
thing about teaching, right, Susan? I mean, this is not direct instruction in front of the classroom. Like, we still see a lot. It's much more differentiated, right? And
absolutely.
Voice.
Absolutely. Let me show you one more thing, and then I'm going to get my face back on the screen because it's hard to sort of talk without seeing. So here again, this is the very launching of the first couple weeks of school. They're asking a series of questions too that aren't really they're not necessarily differentiated with that kind of audio or visual right now. But one of the reasons that this team is using Schoology is because they can come over to this mastery reporting. So I'm going to click on mastery. I think when you get a chance to see it from the student view, this sort of might make sense about how we can think differently about using technology to meet the needs of kids in a PLP environment. I'll say that again in just a second because I said that fast. But if you notice on the left-hand side, there are learning objectives. And what the teachers went in and did is they took the Next Generation Science Standards, I believe, and they aligned the assignments with the learning standard. So when they went to create this assignment, The Demon Haunted World by Carl Sagan, watch this video and answer these questions, they knew it was meeting this learning targeted need. Okay? And they know this one does it too, and this one does it too, and this one does it too. So at the end of the 3-week unit, the kid will come back in and be able to take a look at almost this reporting, this data, feedback to the kid about where he or she lies on these graphs based on these learning objectives, based on their choices. All right, and come back in because I want to hear what you're thinking about that. No, I'm not. Hear him. So what are you thinking about that?
whole school has to adopt before you can use it, or can you use it on teacher-to-teacher basis?
And just to clarify, you're talking about Schoology itself or the mastery piece of it?
Schoology itself.
That use at Harwood, the middle school started using it because they wanted to do some blended instruction. They weren't thinking about differentiation at that point, and so the teachers just signed up for a free version of it. So you can just go in and type in Schoology.com and then start working with sending out assignments this way. In order to get the mastery reporting like that, that's the paid for version. So the school has decided that they're going to be graduating students in the year 2017 with personal learning plans that are proficiency based. So what the whole faculty has to start thinking about is, wait a minute, my 82% average for homework isn't going to mean anything in a proficiency based model when you have to build everything backwards based on agreed upon standards.
And this is what they're talking about in Manchester as well, making everything proficiency based so that these number grades are sort of going to the wayside.
So again, one of the ways that people are experimenting with this, we've got a Spanish teacher at Edmonds Middle School. She has a huge number of kids, and when you think about how the middle school and the rotation, they come in for a 6-week period and then they move on. She's as well created this menu of differentiation for her kids. And they have she's broken it down into really specific learning targets. So they have to come in and during the course of the week, they have to say, well, I need to be able to repeat to you that I know the alphabet. Or I need to have a response to a conversation that is fluent. Whatever she's sort of targeted like that, she's creating these assignments for them in Google Docs and on Google Drive. And what they do is they come in and where they happen to be, they self-assess, and then they say, okay, I think I'm ready. And they raise their hand and they say, I want to go and do this assessment now, Senora.
So is the teacher sort of standing on the side, kind of just not even really, at this point, facilitating anymore because they know what to do? So the students are just coming in and doing it and letting her know when they're ready to demonstrate their knowledge?
So again, she's experimenting with that. So she starts the class with something together. She had a little red bear, and everybody had to say something about their name, and me llamo es. They'd throw the bear around, and they would do that, and they would practice. And then she said, okay, everybody now break up and go do what you need to do. Figure out where you are in this assessment scheme. She was using Google Docs and spreadsheets to keep track of that for the students. And then they would say, okay, and they'd go practice together, and they could decide that they were going to voice record because she has iPads, or they're going to do it face-to-face. So they had some learning style options for them to be able to demonstrate what they know. When she gives them the feedback back, she's actually not giving them the 80 or the 90. She's just marking what's wrong or giving feedback.
And that all goes into the mastery. So halfway through, if you're kind of curious what they are, it automatically uploads, or you have to kind of sync it with your mastery page. You know what I mean?
So tell me if it's syncing with the mastery page. That's where I lost you.
So these kids do these projects that are all built into the Schoology.
Okay.
And are those automatically synced into the mastery, or do you have some that are not in the mastery and some that are? Or kind of what's the deal there?
It's a great question, and it also begs the question for me, how many artifacts do you have to be proficient? So if in this one context you can say the alphabet to the teacher very quickly, is that proficient halfway through the year or not? You know, the fact that you wouldn't in a novel situation then be able to repeat it means to me that you're not proficient in it. So she has to kind of think about a cycle of going forward like that. The teachers in Schoology who are using Schoology are saying, we're going to end the 3-week unit and we're going to have the kids look at the reporting, the graphs. And if they haven't hit one of those learning targets, they're going to have to do something together as a group to get them there before they move on to the next unit. Schoology, like WebCT and Blackboard and Haiku and all of these others, has a grading system involved in this. So the traditional grading doesn't necessarily work within this kind of context. When people first come into a learning management system like this, they're still kind of setting it up with percentages and points, and it's an 82 and a 96, and it averages it out. But if you're in a proficiency model or a standards-based model, why would you get a 3.82 in the science worksheet? So I live in Montpelier, and my daughters go to Main Street Middle School, and they do get that. So it's a standard-based reporting, but it doesn't make any sense to me to say, why did you get a 367 on this vocabulary quiz? What the heck's that? Because it's proficient or it's not, So it's really interesting. And I know I'm talking sort of in a big, broad way of school change and not specific to how can I use Explain Everything to get kids to tell me what they know. So I hope that this isn't taking you down a route. But for me, what it's saying is that I have to think very differently if in 4 or 5 years I'm working within a school system who's working towards proficiencies, and our state is trying to get us to do that.
And they've been talking about this for a long time, Susan. I mean, this has been a long time coming. So it's really a very exciting time for these folks going into the schools. And one of the reasons I really wanted to hear from you all today is, I want them to be able to say at an interview, I understand that things are going to a proficiency-based model, and I understand that there's technology out there that's helping us to manage our students' learning. So thank you for helping us to think big picture.
So I'm going to come at it just from one other angle and then see if there are questions, okay? So if I'm imagining teaching in this model where I actually have access to a learning management system at some point, I know this is big and broad because there's some of you who don't even have access to a tool. Like you can't, how do you create this if you can't, in the work right now? And I know kids have access to seeing that blended learning, and I have this amazing opportunity to just in time bring in other kinds of resources that will help all kinds of learners learn. I can elaborate upon something. So let me give you an example. I might be teaching a book that has some references to apartheid. And I'm in the moment of having a discussion with some kids, and I realize there's 7th grade kids and they've never heard of this term before. There's no way we're going to be able to move forward with character development if they don't know that. I should be able to, in real time, grab access to a video that's going to help them do that. You probably all know where you can go out right now and find a video about apartheid, right? And you probably, without a lot of trouble, could pop that video right into Schoology. And what I love about these learning management systems is, if I know about this from behind the scenes, I can send that video to 6 kids. And then I can find this great article that's learning Lexile scored for readers at a certain level for the kids who I know would rather grapple with text, and I can send that to those 7. And then I can do this sort of simulation game and send it to these other 5. And none of them need to know that they have different resources. They just come back in the next day and we jigsaw and have a conversation, and they have something interesting to be able to give back to the conversation. Isn't that kind of cool? I mean, I get goosebumps thinking about it, because just 4 years ago you had to go really like cart with the TV on it and try to plug in like 8-track tape. I mean, it was 4 years ago, but really we've come so far. It's pretty amazing. So I'm going to show you one other resource that I think might make you think about this. So we're going to screen share again, okay?
And Susan, I know, I don't know if we have time or if you even have anything handy, but the teacher dashboard element over the summer really blew my mind. I don't know if there's any way for them to see what the teacher dashboard looks like.
Excellent. I'll pull that up right after this too, okay? Because this is a pretty quick one.
And I also just want to mention, I have some students right here who are saying, gosh, my school doesn't have any of this. But I also sort of want to say it happens fast, right? These changes in schools happen overnight. 2 years ago, we were using the Elmo. Now everyone's using iPads. So even if they don't have it now, they may have it in 2 years.
They may have it in 2 years, but you might be at a table with a bunch of folks who are saying, what is this PLP stuff? And wait a minute, we're just going to use it as a way for the kids to do guidance work? There's that conversation, and then there's the conversation about how do we change instruction? How do we take advantage of this stuff and get budgets that are going to support our ability to differentiate with kids? I think it's so interesting. What you're seeing on your screen right now is this free open source access to curated resources. It's called Guru. So if you just Google Guru, you'll see that people are coming together and sharing our curated collections of technology-rich resources to create almost these playlists, if you will. So let's push you back, in like move forward in about 5 or 6 years. And you're working in a school and you realize you get this opportunity to differentiate for kids, and you need ready access to some resources that are just in time. Okay, is that setting that up for you okay? So if I'm elementary school math, I can come in and I can see this curated list of mixed resources from Ms. Gump. Oh, I love Ms. Gump. I just want to say her name a lot. Ms. Gump. Isn't that great? She's put together this mix of these lesson plans, so you can see the way that it's structured around this learning content. And then she's got all these resources here for us. And if I like it, I can go ahead and I can share it with my students, or I can grab it and I can remix it. So this feels to me like sharing of lesson plans 2.0. You see what I'm talking about? There are all kinds of portals now for you to be able to be a teacher, to go ahead and grab almost lesson plan resources. Take me just a minute to get here. Let's do science 4th grade. And somebody's already done that work to kind of curate websites and videos and things that are basically aligned with some Common Core standards or some next generation science standards, and are ready and available for that age range. Now, are they all good? No. It's like looking for WebQuest or other materials online. Some teachers do it well and others don't. But they're capitalizing on this kind of social networking around curating of resources. So Mr. Lynch, maybe he's really good and I like him and I'm going to follow him in Guru, and then I'm going to get all of his resources and steal them. That's pretty cool, huh?
Because that's what teachers do. We very nicely and kindly borrow the great stuff that we see out there that other people are doing. And then we can be creative with it and make it our own. But that is the way to start.
So I'm pulling up teacher dashboard and then shifting gears now just for this last part of this for what are you Monica to your students?
Am I what?
Do you go by your first name with your students?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I remember your last name, so I wasn't sure. I'll call you Ms. M.
And while you're pulling that up, please tell your girls I said hello. Give them big hugs for me.
I definitely will.
And I know that they also were really enjoying Minecraft.
Love it.
You told me something really cool about that this summer that maybe you could share. What they're doing in schools with Minecraft. And maybe Audrey has seen some of these too. Y'all know Minecraft?
Yeah.
I've heard of it.
Good. I said, good. Good. It wasn't even a word, it was a sound.
And we only want to give you a few more minutes. We know how busy you are. We're so thankful.
Whew. Okay. Are you folks seeing teacher dashboard?
No. We're only seeing you still. That's okay. We'd like to see you.
I think I might know. By the way, I so wish people in schools, elementary, middle, and high schools, were using Hangouts like this.
I think it's brilliant that I can have an expert like you guys, experts like you, right here at our fingertips. And we don't have to drive to Burlington. It's just great.
That's right. There's a Google Plus community and global connections through Google Hangouts like this. If you join their community, I'll send you, Monica, the link to this. You can join all kinds of field trips through Google Hangouts that are sponsored all over the place, and they're free. So as long as you can have a connection that's strong enough to do a Hangout like this, you can go to Jim Henson's Muppet Makerspace, or NASA does all of these things. So it's just one of those, it's like Skype, but with Hangouts like this, you can have other folks in. Okay, very quickly. What Teacher Dashboard lets me do, and it might be similar to Google Classroom in some ways, although it looks very different. So most often teachers in schools, to me, seem to be, if they're tech savvy, they're using some form of the Google's suite of tools. So that if you're a GAF school, Google, what does GAF stand for?
I haven't heard of a GAF school.
Audrey, do you remember what GAP stands for?
Google Applications for Schools.
Thank you. Google Applications for Education. You might end up having a Google domain where kids all have logins, even kids in second and third grade, and they have access to some of these tools, and it's locked down to the school's domain. So teachers really, when they first start with those, might say, yeah, I'm going to use some Google Docs, and then I might even collaborate with Google Docs, and that's probably as far as they go. Many of them are starting to think about Google Sites for portfolio work, and so this summer at the Middle Grades Institute, we decided that we would build all of our infrastructure with technology in those Google tools just because they're so accessible to lots of schools. So what you're seeing here are the courses, the way that we ended up teaching. So I'm going to just go to Technology as a Strand. It was one of the courses for the week. And what I get to do as a teacher behind the scenes in Dashboard is I can come in and I can see all students' folders in Drive.
This is what I'm talking about. So there's all the students, and you can see everything that they're putting into their portfolio. And I would like to go this way actually here at Castleton, so that when my future students in student teaching seminar are putting in entries into their portfolios, I can see immediately what they're putting in without having to go through Moodle, which is what we do here at Vermont State College level. And I can go in and I can edit or make comments, go right back out, and if they want to put something else in, if they want to be working on entry 6 right now, or someone else is still working on entry 1, I can see it happening.
So you have to make your portfolios, like every student has to make his own portfolio, or do they already get it through the GAS system?
Monica, did you want to grab that one? Or?
Well, I mean, I happen to know that what we did, at least this summer, is everyone created their own portfolio using Google Sites. But then we were able to, again, look at it from this view, your dashboard, and see as people were adding, and you all were working with graduate students who were creating action research projects. And again, you were able to see. So it's a way of monitoring how, what students are up to.
But how do they get their portfolios?
So we set for them a template.
So
right?
as soon as they're a student, they get a portfolio?
They get a template, and then they create, and we have put in that template, we have kind of explained like what you need to do for each section of the portfolio, just like you guys have been doing
to customize
with
it,
tasks,
theirs.
And then they customize it and make it theirs, just like that.
And to follow up with that, so what Hapara does, and it's a paid course service, I think it's something like $6 a kid, so it's expensive for some schools. It gives you this overlay of this dashboard, but when we go ahead and create that template, it shoots out to all kids' drives. So the kids have a foldering system, and then they also have this template that they just click on in their sites. So it allows us to just to push that information out to them without having to worry about asking them to go into the gallery and copy it and share permissions and all those things that get kind of wonky in the sharings of Google. So this is a really powerful window into what kids are doing. And if it turns out that we had turned on the asking students to blog, you could end up going and seeing all their posts in their blogs as well through this dashboard in this window. So that's pretty powerful, and I think that's where Google Classroom is going to be going, a way for teachers to organize and not just do this messy sharing in folder to folder.
That's what I really find intriguing and wonderful, because again, the student can be off doing what they love, what they're passionate about. They can do it in their own time, and yet you can monitor. And so if a student, only has put one thing in and everyone else has 8 things, you can talk with that, have a conversation with that student, figure out what they need.
So these teachers, you just see I'm hovering my cursor over here, these teachers were just blogging, and they didn't have to, but they were experimenting with what that was like. So they were using Blogger, which is integrated into Google's tools, and they're asking their students, when their students create their own portfolios, that in the portfolio, which looks a little similar to the one that I just popped up. Let's see if I can go back there to that now. That they also have a link up here for the blog, and they're asking students to reflect informally in kind of a messy way in the blog, and then over the course of the week or two, to go back in when they do this sort of reflection to say, is there something in here that's a good artifact to show growth over time, or show that I've met this sort of expectation or this goal. So the sort of the messy and then the formative being in this nice sort of package of a site. And that's really interesting to me to see how that's going to play out.
And we're talking about young kids, setting up. I know in Manchester, they're starting in first grade, that they have maybe just a couple of tabs and the kids are going in and starting their portfolio that then will follow them all the way through 12th grade.
That's right. I'm going to leave you with Main Street Middle School, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And the reason I'm bringing you to Main Street Middle School is because this team summit, okay, we'll go on over to their homepage, seems to be further along than most people that we've seen. Dawn Taylor and Amy Kimball are the team teachers, along with Lauren Chabot. And when you come up to their main site, you'll see that they've been doing some work on PLPs. But they're also using Minecraft to teach geography this year. And they're asking students to take the geographical understandings that they built in Minecraft and put that in their PLP along with lots of other things. So seeing how Minecraft is being used is just great. And then I'm just going to click on PLP so you can come and see what they've done. They define the personal learning plan, and then they have the way that they're through constructing, setting goals, connecting relationships to the community, talking about their own characteristics, and then further on like this. So this is a really nice resource to see how PLPs happen to be set up. And they're using Google Sites in which to do it.
And I just know that, again, when I was teaching the 7th and 8th graders, all they could talk about was how in school now they're playing Minecraft, building these amazing fantasy worlds, and then connecting it to math and history, geography. And that's where they get engaged then, because they were building these independent, all by themselves, whatever was in their imaginations, they were creating these things. And then we're able to link them to the content, which seemed really powerful.
Monica, I'm going to do a quick shout out as well to this team because they are really mindful of getting out to the community, and so they have a Twitter account. They've got a YouTube channel where they do lots of the environment, so they create this green team who does these monthly video reports out, and then they have a blog, and so they're trying to keep access out to connections with the community in a really powerful way using technology. Am I back?
We've got you. We still got you, yeah. You look great.
Any questions you guys have about specific tools or frustrations you have about trying to use them with kids?
What was that? Not the last one you showed us, the MSI one that had the Google Drive and all your little portfolios and stuff. What was that called again?
It's called Teacher Dashboard, and
I looked that up. I can find that.
Is that the one you're asking about that had the access to all the folders? Yep. It's from a company called Hapara, Hapara, and they're out of New Zealand. U32 has had some really good, middle school has been using it for a number of years and has had great success with portfolios, reflections, PLPs, and Hapara. It'd be a good school to visit.
But that does cost something, right? So for schools who are really struggling with finances, it's widening the gap, right? They're having to, although there are grants and things out there. So again, these future leaders in schools might be able to find someone like you who's a resource to help them to write a grant, get the money to do that. To get these and Hapara is not that expensive, is it?
Was between $5 and $6 a student, so that depends on the size of the school, and the budget can be expensive. For me, the message that I share with the teachers with whom I work and are willing to let me come in at 3 when they're exhausted is you have an opportunity.
We're feeling pretty exhausted here today.
You have an opportunity, even if you just have one device in your classroom, to differentiate. And the teacher I talked about doing that earth science unit in the Schoology, he said to me yesterday, he just got his master's, and he said, I always talked about differentiating. I never differentiated. We didn't do that. And now I have an opportunity to try it. So I think it's shaping up ways that you can structure and you can think about time. But even just getting in some visuals and some auditory in your teaching and letting kids show you what they know in that way is super powerful.
Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you, Audrey. We didn't hear enough from you, though.
I have like 4 different completely different tools that I will actually write up. I have some online resources I can direct you to, so you can just read about them in your own time, and go home and pet your dog while you're reading them. I also have a resource connected to a school that we partnered with for I forget who it was, but the person in your class who is going into a situation that has no devices whatsoever. We partnered with a school that started in that situation, and I wanted to share the way that they approached that, and the way that they approached that, combining and really honoring personalized learning and letting the students. Basically, they wrote grants and got community partners to bring in devices, and then they let the kids determine how they were going to pursue both that and then what they built from that experience, and then how they shared it with the community. I'll write all that up, I'll send it to Monica, and then hopefully she'll forward it all to you guys.
I will. Thank you all so much. Oh, very nice.
That's why we like Hangouts.
Yeah, and you know what? We may as well have fun, right? One more. Anything else, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Can't wait to work on it.
It's a great profession. We love it.
It is a great profession, and it's always changing every day. All right, take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.